Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Find Your Freedom TV. My name's Jodie and this is the show that's designed to help you become mentally, emotionally, physically and financially free. So today's episode is all about focusing on mental freedom. And I want to introduce you to a guy who I met several years ago and has become one of my favourite teachers. He's actually coming to Adelaide for the Wake Up Adelaide movement. And he's one of those people that challenges you from the inside out in a fun and creative way, but also has an incredible depth of knowledge. So I'm so excited to welcome him here. Alistair Horscroft, come on down to Find Your Freedom TV. Hello.
Hi, Jodie. Ta-da. Thank you very much for that very lovely welcome and introduction. It's very lovely of you. Thank you.
It's my pleasure. And I say hand on heart, you are my absolute favourite teacher. And I've had some fucking good teachers, I must say, but no one has really, I guess, challenged all of my existing framework about the whole world the way that you did. And even though you made me cry for 3 weeks straight, I love you to death. So
Thanks, Jo. I'll get a T-shirt saying I'm Jodie's favourite teacher and wear it to Wake Up Adelaide in front of all of the others.
Well, I'll introduce you as my favourite teacher there as well, and that T-shirt will go down a treat. So thanks for being here.
Oh, no, it's a pleasure. Thanks so much.
I always like to start with the very first question for everyone that's the same. What does freedom mean to you?
Well, it's one of the big questions, isn't it, really? I mean, freedom to me is kind of threefold. Yeah, it's freedom of mind, it's freedom of movement in the body, and it's freedom of movement in life itself, you know, the freedom to travel and the freedom to kind of pursue the things that you truly love, you know, at every opportunity. Yep,
love it. And have you ever, and I know some of your story, obviously, but have you ever felt trapped yourself in life?
Maybe 32 years of it.
Yeah. Do you still feel? Just a little bit, you know?
Yeah, I mean, of course. I mean, as you know, I kind of, I did anxiety from a
very young age. Anxiety, yep.
Yeah, and, anxiety is definitely a trapping style disorder, It doesn't want you getting you out and about and into the things that you love. So I definitely felt, trapped by anxiety, definitely felt trapped by certain responsibilities, trapped by guilt, Am I allowed to say I felt trapped in a marriage?
Yes, you can say that. Many people get trapped in a marriage. Yep.
Yeah, I've kind of, I would say a significant part of my earlier life, felt oscillated between extreme freedom and, the extreme frustrations of being trapped. I've definitely felt trapped financially numerous times in my life where I haven't had the resources to kind of do what I wanted to do. So, I would say trapped has been a relatively accurate word for things I've experienced, for sure.
Yeah. You've played that game consistently.
I really have.
Yeah. So
Mousetrap was my favourite game as a kid.
Oh, it's good fun, isn't it? Don't you like building contraptions?
Exactly.
Anxiety is something that I meet a lot of, and I bet you meet a lot of people that feel trapped by anxiety, the worry or the fear of what could possibly happen. Would you mind sharing with us a little bit about how someone like you, who's pretty cool and cash now, who doesn't really reek of anxiety in any way, but how you used to do anxiety or what that was like for you?
Well, I mean, I started doing anxiety, like I said, pretty early on. And I remember it really kicked in around 8 when I kind of changed schools. And I remember going to school and, not really knowing what it was. But now looking back, it was obviously panic attacks. Yeah. And then by the time I had age 11, I had a pretty serious operation. It's a pretty life-changing kind of op. And, that just sent me off the map. You know what I mean? I kind of missed a year of school. And that anxiety was incapacitating. I found it very hard to be in a public space. But I remember the worst part was I was living in London, and I was had to take the London Underground, obviously, into school. And it took me about an hour and 20 minutes to get into school. And part of my anxiety was needing to go to the toilet all the time. I had a bit of OCD around that. I got a bladder infection during the operation, and then it kind of became psychosomatic. And so literally after 9 months, I literally knew all the guards and all the guards' toilets at every station on my trip into London. So literally about kind of like 22 stops. And I mean, they were very, very lovely. You know, they, kind of helped me out. And I became like, the local anxious kid who would just beg to use the staff toilets. I mean, that's how bad it was. You know,
survival skills, map out the subway and
yeah, literally. I mean, so the idea of being stuck in a tunnel when you've got that anxiety disorder and this kind of like psychosomatic need to go to the toilet, I mean, it was genuinely like being stuck in hell. And then due to my intelligent way of going around life, I managed to get myself a head injury when I was 21, 22, and got swelling on the front lobe of my brain. And that just took me out completely. And from that, I got PTSD, and then it escalated and didn't leave my room for 3 months. So I've had a bit of a pro level. Pretty pro at it. I was pretty good at it.
I did a degree, PhD.
A rosette. Well, I want to win, Jodie. I want to win.
I want to be the best.
Exactly. I really want to go there. Definitely OCD was definitely the worst, and that really kicked in. I mean, I had it when I was a kid, but it really kicked in after the brain injury. And I mean, that was a living hell, I have to be honest, like really hell. To the point where, like a lot of people don't understand about some aspects of kind of suicide, a lot of the time, certainly I have the experience of not wanting to kill myself because I didn't want to be here, but I certainly wanted to end it because I just couldn't handle what was going on in my head, So pretty drastic. It is.
And it's, even Theone said here, anxiety in kids these days is quite common. And I think to actually recognise for the children, and this is what I'd love to get some insight from you, Alistair, is in when children or young people or adults, anyone suffering from anxiety, like, can you talk us a bit about how you freed yourself from that? And then some tips that other people can do. So how'd you break out of it?
Well, firstly, I mean, and as you well know, I'm not a massive fan of child-based therapy, and obviously there's exceptions to the rule. If a child has been in a traumatic incident, like a car crash, or there's been abuse or something like that, then of course I'm in favor of child-based therapy. But the majority of the anxiety disorders aren't really being caused by that. They're being caused by social conditions, problems within the family unit, it's being passed on. So really it's it's an adult family kind of situation, parents
Absolutely.
having, schools take too much of the shouldering the burden. So, I really would like to see a lessening of children going to therapy rather than an increase of it, that's, quite frustrating to observe. And, I'm kind of blunt and I'm pretty honest. And, I think if clinical psychology had it right, well, I think the messaging out into the community would be working. And so I don't really think they got it right because I don't think it's working. So I think the current, solutions and approaches are kind of systemic at this point,
I agree.
They're systemic about how children are being raised. They're systemic about how people are spending their time, and so it's not like I would have treated that. Even in 1990, when I first started practicing, most anxiety disorders were, I suppose, reactionary kind of anxiety disorders to some genuine kind of negative interaction or, something like that. These days, not really, they're just anxious because of, the whole kind of social media stuff or, unhappy marriages or, a lack of you get what I'm saying? It's changed now,
Yeah. I feel like as well, this is a controversial topic, I recognise, and when you start to talk about mental health and people have very strong opinions that, you shouldn't mess with that, you've got to go off and you've got to see a doctor, but I'm a big believer in, or would not necessarily a believer, but what I've noticed is the more that the government, for want of a better word, puts emphasis and resources into this, the bigger the problem seems to be coming. It's almost like a freaking movement now. And I don't see things getting better in the conventional path. I know that's a controversial thing to say, but what are your thoughts on that, Alistair? Is that where you're coming from, or is it a slightly different angle?
No, I'm completely with you, Jodie, and I'm very outspoken about it, and a lot of people don't like that.
No, same.
And I think there's two, very interesting things that we can kind of, chat about that. And I think the first thing is that Western psychology is both industriocentric and ethnocentric, basically meaning that most psychological, processes and ideas and concepts are of kind of, scientific relativism, which occurred after kind of the Industrial Revolution, and ethnocentric because they completely ignore and believe that anything that's indigenous is basically make-believe and made up. But actually, as we're beginning to realize, anyone in the know, most of the good stuff comes out of the indigenous cultures. I mean, it's kind of hilarious to me that clinical psychology is using mindfulness and meditation now. Well, okay, well done. That came out of, the Indian cultures. It's like they're like cuckoo birds of, what worked that everyone else realized worked about fucking 50 years ago, So, it's kind of, I definitely think that this, ethno-industriocentric, kind of approach, well, it's obviously not working,
Yeah,
So
absolutely. The writing's on the wall.
The writing's on the wall, and obviously you've still got to follow the money. I mean, the reality, once again, is if people are getting paid to do, a job by the government, and it's all pre-frameworked, well, everyone just goes through a framework. But that's is that really what's useful? I mean, say for example, as you well know, things like post-traumatic stress syndrome. I mean, I'm very adept at helping people not do that. As are many of my students, and I've got writings on the wall. I've been paid by the Veterans Affairs, for that, and the reality of the situation is a friend of mine went to a local kind of, well, not a local, one of the big associational kind of psych conferences. And the lady on stage was basically, with a wink in her eye and a glee, isn't it wonderful now that vets, we no longer have to have them just for 6 sessions, we can have them for life. But it wasn't said with that's a problem. That was celebrated, because now we've got them for life. I'm like, well, if that's your intent, that means you're basically creating, just a coping strategies, not a resolving strategies, So I think people need to start being more outspoken against things that simply aren't working. And I think the arrogance of Western medicine and Western psychology has to be challenged, because it's an arrogance. It's obviously indigenous approaches and, like I said, pre-industrial revolution approaches have worked, And actually, the truth of the matter is most of them were incredibly practical. We weren't just talking about it or talking over it or sitting in a chair. The indigenous tribes were practical as, very practical A to B solutions. And, we know, I mean, I've treated thousands of anxiety, thousands of phobias, all the rest of it with a genuine observable track record, you know what I mean? But still, they don't want to know about it.
And that's what I absolutely agree. This is why I had to get you to come to Adelaide for Wake Up Adelaide, because that is the movement to say, you know what? We're all heading in the wrong direction, folks. Things are getting worse, not better. It's time we wake up and look at some alternatives that are actually working over here, but there's only this minority of people that are really exploring it. And what if we took this stuff and made it more available to people? After I went and did the Diploma of Modern Psychology with you, I started sharing some of the profoundly simple yet powerfully effective strategies that you taught me. And even I'm like, whoa, this stuff is actually working. This is really weird. And so it was just amazing. Oh, it looks like we've actually dropped Alistair out. Is he frozen or is he dropped out? I think he might have dropped out, Theoni, if you can check that. But what Alistair's talking about is really, really important stuff. And I have to say, when I went and did the Diploma of Modern Psychology with Alistair, so he runs the Mind Academy up in Noosa, and he also has another business called the Optimal Life Code. When I went and studied with Alistair, I learned about modern psychology. And then after that, I went and did a diploma of yoga teaching, not to be a yoga teacher, but just because I love to learn. And exactly as Alistair was saying, what I found fascinating was that the modern psychology that he was teaching me was actually all woven through ancient practices and ancient wisdom from the diploma of the yoga diploma that I did. So really cool stuff. Now, hopefully we can get Alistair back on. Hello, Briley. Thanks for joining us there. And it looks like we've got some internet failure happening at Alistair's end. I'm just going to check what's happening here. And fingers crossed we can get him back on, because he's a fascinating guy and he's got some amazing stuff to share. By the way, I mentioned briefly that Alistair's coming to Adelaide for the Wake Up Adelaide event. If what Alistair's talking about, or some of the things that you've seen me messaging here on Find Your Freedom TV over the last couple of episodes are resonating with you, then I really do encourage you to come along and join this movement with us, because when we first launched the whole idea of Wake Up Adelaide, so many people said, oh, you can't do that in Adelaide. Adelaide's too conservative. Adelaide people don't want this. And me being the pig-headed person that I am, I was determined to prove people wrong. And so we need the small critical mass, the small vital few to get together and really lead the way for the critical mass. So if you want to come and join us and meet Alistair and meet Christina Carlson and the guys from the 2020 Fast, make sure you get your Wake Up Adelaide ticket, and hopefully we can get Alistair back on the line. I've just got a message from Theone. Any help coming through? The joys of live TV.
Hey, Jody.
Oh, hello. You're back.
I have no idea what happened. The whole thing just crashed. Be Live just crashed on me.
You know what happened is because I thought you were intently listening to me with a very serious face. I'm chatting away. I'm like, he's gone very poker faced.
I was. But honestly, that's the second time I've had an interview on Be Live and it's completely crashed. So I don't know. Yeah, sorry.
Well, you're back
anyway,
now.
You're back.
You're back. So I was just raving and filling in the time, but talking about how everything you're saying really is the essence of what the Wake Up Adelaide movement is. So from a practical approach, Alistair, if we talk about people finding freedom in their own mental paths, and I'd love you to talk to us a little bit about how you do this, not so much in the Mind Academy, but working with people directly through the Optimal Life Co. What are the keys to finding freedom mentally, do you believe?
Well, I think first of all, we have to understand that we've got a mind and a brain. And they are, depending on what worldview you have, they are either independent or interdependent. So if we go with the current scientific idea, then we have a brain. And think of the brain like the TV or the hardware. And then you can think of the mind as like the software and the stations, or you can think of the mind as the computer and the brain as the computer and the mind as the hardware. So the software and the programs and the apps. Yeah. And, basically the way that it works is your brain, the mind is the electrical signals that run around the brain. Yes. Mm-hmm. The more indigenous worldview is a non-local worldview where we've got a brain and the brain's more like a radio receiver. And the mind is more like a radio station, and you kind of tune into the mind in a non-local way. But either way that you wish to look at it, we have to get a well-working brain and a well-working mind. Okay, so we can have the best hardware in the world, and we've been blessed with a wonderful brain that works and nothing's going wrong with it. There's no alcohol that's fucked it up when we were kids. There's no injuries. There's no we haven't been born into a war zone, which is caused hyperdensity and cellular density in various areas of the brain. But if we keep on putting our brain in front of kind of Instagram and shit flicks and all the other things, well, that's like just putting that's like putting the shittiest kind of software on your computer. You know what I mean? And wondering why it doesn't work. Equally, you might have a 1994 Commodore 84, and if you're trying to chuck OS X, whatever the new one is, onto it, you're going to struggle, aren't you? So we need to get our brains working and we need to get our minds working. Brains often, that's done via, I suppose, either things that we call neurofeedback, which is kind of retraining the brain waves in the brain, or that's a relatively expensive route. A cheaper route is, you look at the work of Schwartz and, a wonderful book called, You Are Not Your Brain. And that's basically what we call self-directed neuroplasticity, where you basically use kind of thought power and mind power to literally rewire the brain. Yeah. So, that's kind of what you want to do. And equally, for the mind, you really want to be putting your mind into, the best quality information that you can, and both the brain and the mind also require lots of time off screen, lots of time for sleep and rest, lots of time in nature, lots of time actually connecting with people, lots of time putting effort in, lots of time not trying to do because the brain's an interesting thing. The brain is inherently relatively lazy. Yes. Yeah. And the mind
always wants the easiest path, doesn't it?
Wants the easiest. Yeah. That's right. But the mind tends to bully the brain because the mind's like, I want to be I want you to do this. I want you to do this. And the brain's like, well, hang on. Literally like in that way. So I think the first thing to do is to understand that our job is to, basically look at optimizing both, or at least giving both the best chance that they can, at functioning kind of optimally. And, a short, easy way of understanding that is I often define an optimal brain or an optimal mind is, an optimal brain is a brain that can meet each moment as it needs to be met. But most people meet the present moment with just their history, don't they? The history of trauma, the history of annoyances, the history of guilt, the history of whatever triggers them, and that's how they meet the moment. So they never really meet the moment afresh or with a resourceful place, you've got to do some work in life. You got to clean your history up. You know what I mean? You've got to have the self-honesty to know that things aren't working. You've got to kind of adjust them and take responsibility and have, like, genuine, radical self-honesty. These are the things that you need kind of before you do anything else. If you go into personal development without the capacity for self-honesty, well, you're probably going to be dicking around for a few years.
Yeah, absolutely. And I see that happen actually a lot. It's a lot of people fear radical self-honesty. They fear 100% responsibility because there's this kind of protective mechanism where they want to pass the blame. But I find it the most liberating thing. The moment I started just fessing up with my own shit and going, I'm telling myself some pretty bullshit stories here, I actually felt freer than I'd ever felt. It was like, oh, okay, I don't have to do that anymore. I guess the awareness is step one. Yeah.
Totally, but it's also the self-honesty to know that, sometimes, you just want to put your feet up and have a glass of wine. That's fine as well. It's, we live in such a polarized kind of approach to things, and, a lot of people are, it's kind of love, hate, good, bad, right, wrong. You know what I mean? It's so childish. God, surely we should have got past that by the time age 4. You know what I mean? But everyone's still playing that game now. Yeah. And what it shows me is that most people, if you take the word triggering, everyone, we're all joining in and enjoying the disaster of the offense culture and the cancel culture and triggering and all this kind of stuff. But I think it's very important to understand what the word triggering actually means. To be triggered in its truest form means to be deregulated. It basically means that your nervous system can't cope with what's just occurred. So actually being triggered isn't a badge of honor. It actually basically means you've got shitty coping mechanisms. That's what it means. You know what I mean? And it's really important to understand that. And so I understand that some people are saying, but you shouldn't be allowed to say offensive things. Okay, but that's like trying to get resilient kids by not giving them any, anything to get resilient about. It just doesn't make any sense.
Absolutely.
Of course, we want to teach our children and teach ourselves that, saying bad things isn't necessarily a great idea. But it's stupid to think that those things are going to get cancelled out of culture. They're just simply not. It's a part of being. I think what's really interesting is, and I was reading a piece about this the other day, is up until, I suppose like the 60s or the 70s, there was a general worldview that the human beings, it was kind of like, I suppose, more of a Christian worldview, but there was a general worldview that we were, as human beings, we were, we kind of weren't quite right. You know what I mean? And we had failings and we had fallibilities, and we had all these stuff. And so therefore our effort in life was to kind of overcome them. And our effort in life was to realize that, we might not be good all the time. So we have to make effort to be good, and we might have shitty thoughts. We've got to make effort to have, you know what I mean? So because basically there was the idea that we were intrinsically, the Christians and stuff say at sin. I think that's a bit strong, but we're intrinsically still, let's say intrinsically still evolving if we go Darwinian style. Yeah. We're still in the process of evolving. Yeah. And then when kind of the humanitarians, kind of study areas or the humanities of universities basically started buying into kind of the work of Rousseau and various other philosophers who posited that human beings are inherently good. Yes. And so this sounds great. I'm inherently good. And so therefore, if you come at that, then is there any more effort to be good? Is there any self-correction? Is there any need to kind of keep yourself kind of on the path? And so now we're kind of living a world where everyone assumes that everyone's good, but that's simply not true. There are plenty of people who suffer from mental illnesses that aren't particularly useful, like, or let's say nice, like.
Yeah. Oh, we lost him again. We lost him again. Oh, okay. It looks like we've lost Alistair again. And, I hope that he'll jump back on again. Adair has just given me a reminder to let you all know. Hopefully Alistair will jump back on. Adair's given me a reminder to let you all know that, yes, of course, Adair, thank you for reminding me of that. If you do want to come to Wake Up Adelaide, of course, let us know that you're interested. And if, by the way, if you're watching this from anywhere other than the 7 Effect page, then make sure you click the link above, watch it on the 7 Effect page. Let us know that you want to come along to Wake Up Adelaide, and we'll give you a code where you can actually save some money on your ticket. So, yeah, we'll send that out to you. You just got to let us know that you're keen to come along. It's going to be an amazing 2 days. And as you can see, oh, hey, Effie, are you watching? Hello, Effie. We'd love to see you at Wake Up Adelaide. Oh, my God, you're going to love it. But as you can see, Alistair is just a man with so much knowledge. Like, his depth is incredibly deep around this topic. And I have to admit, when I went and studied with him, you do 3 weeks intensive at the Mind Academy, I didn't realise how many things I had to release. And it wasn't a bad process. Hey, Effie, so lovely to see you here. It wasn't a bad process. It was just a really cathartic process. And I think that to see someone go on a journey like that, like Alistair has, who's gone from the depths of trauma as a child with the anxiety and suffered from post-traumatic stress as a young adult, and then found ways to get himself out of that through mastering his own mind, it's a really cool thing. So freedom is something that's absolutely available to us. Adair or Theone, if you can let me know if we can get Alistair back on, that'd be great. Adair is asking me a question here. Also, remember to ask your friends to check out this video. Oh, yes, so absolutely, share the videos around. I'm sorry that we've had technical difficulties with getting Alistair in and out. Maybe we'll get him back on, so I'll stick around. Oh, something's coming. Here he is.
I'm sorry, guys. I don't know what is. I've got a brand new computer, and it's just the app is just crashing.
I wonder if it's the hardware or the software. Is it the brain or the mind?
Exactly. I'm sorry, guys. Yeah. I'm just it's the way it's happening.
Yeah. Well, there's not much we can do about that. But I do think that what's really nice is you've given us some great teasers of just the sheer depth of knowledge that you have around this topic. Obviously, you'll be able to share more at Wake Up Adelaide. But just for me personally, I'm really excited to know a bit more about the Optimal Life Co. So Mind Academy is about teaching the Diploma of Modern Psychology. But tell me a little bit about your latest project, the Optimal Life Co., and what sort of work you and Josephine are doing there.
Well, I think it's evolving, to be honest. You know, originally we were going to kind of be doing, retreats and that kind of stuff. But I kind of realized, well, I spend enough time in front of people, So I think what we're going to do is we're going to begin to move that now into kind of like just basically a very practical kind of online resource, I would say.
Brilliant.
You know, that resource will be half, kind of mind-based, where we give you kind of useful information about how to actually make practical change. And half it will be kind of like, some technology that you can use, to kind of change things at the level of brain. But also I think, we live in when it comes to, what is an optimal life, I really do believe that it's not hard to, move in towards an optimal life. And to live an optimal life, you just have to kind of think, do my decisions, do they, yes, help me? And do my decisions help others? And do my decisions help the world at large? Yeah. So say, for example, something as simple as buying some clothes. Okay, well, you can be lazy and go buy some clothes off the high street and then, pollute the world and enjoy doing that if you want. But with a little bit of effort, you can buy some clothes that you really enjoy and feel good in. You can buy some clothes that really help the person who made them and make sure they get remuneration that's appropriate. You can also make sure that those, clothes, are sourced in such a way that they, don't pollute as much. And you can also hold on to them for longer and, maybe sew them up if they, have a hole, rather than throwing them out and contributing. So I think if you think about optimal living, a lot of times that can sound like very selfish, but I think the fun is making decisions that are genuinely kind of across the board. And I don't think that's too hard. I think that's too hard to do.
It's absolutely not too hard to do, but people forget. I think what happens, and this was the big shift, is most of us are unconscious most of the time, but just becoming conscious about simple choices, where I buy my clothes from. The ripple effect, conscious of the ripple effect, it's amazing. I love Theone said, buying clothes helps the greater community for her just because she's got her clothes on. Thank you. for the services, Theone. We appreciate you being clothed, which is lovely. So, Alistair, do you mind telling us a little bit about what you're going to share at Wake Up Adelaide? What do you want to actually teach us when people come along?
Well, I think you're kind of going to get the gist of how I do it. I'll be a bit more practical. I think I'm going to talk about, how probably one of the most important things to do is to isolate when we're being our best self and when we're being our kind of mediocre, kind of shitty self, and how to actually identify those two things as a starting point. And then once we've identified those two things, which is a fun thing to do, then it's a matter of, what do we need to do to actually be able to action those aspects of ourselves? What have we got to get out of the way, and what have we got to kind of get into to actually kind of live from those places? But I think most of my work these days is about trying to give people relief from all the nonsense that's out there. There's so much nonsense and so much kind of, pressure and so much like stupidity. It blows my mind. Like, I know everyone wants to be financially free and blah, 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 blah. But you ask most people what they want. They want to be a millionaire. I don't even know what that means. Okay, what do you mean by that? Sure, I've had lots of money in my life and I've lost lots of money and, I've done both. But I can absolutely assure you that after having done both, I don't need $1 million a year to be happy. That much I can assure you, I'm very proud to say I need significantly less. If I still at this stage in my life, after all I've lived and I've, coached billionaires and done super yachts and private planes and all that kind of stuff, if I still felt at this stage of development in my life that I needed $1 million to be happy, I would think I was a fucking idiot. I really would. I would think I was a fucking idiot, Like when you're like genuinely in touch with yourself, and you're genuinely happy and you're being creative, I totally understand there are some people who just love making money. I get that. Yes. But they're the rare exception, to be honest. They're the rare exception. Other people love painting or moving or, doing what they love or whatever it is. So there's these kind of arbitrary ideas around personal development. It's the same today with the gym body. Every dude and every chick has the same shaped body. It's bizarre. It's like some weird body cult. You know what I mean? Like, okay, if that's what you really want to do, but also that's your body structure,
But, he's lost again. Effie's asking when Wake Up Adelaide is on. So, Effie, it is November 21st and 22nd. So it's going to be like a 2-day, think of it this way, a 2-day mini retreat in the city at Adelaide Convention Centre. And Alistair is just one of 17 world-class speakers that you're going to get access to. Christina Carlson, founder of Kiki K, and a whole range of other incredible speakers are coming along. There's also going to be yoga, beautiful, delicious plant-based food. So it's going to be absolutely amazing. So we've lost Alistair again. We'll give him one more crack if he can come on and we'll wrap up. Alistair, if you're listening to me, when we get you back on, we'll ask him his final top tips for finding freedom. It's interesting how he's saying, and this is really interesting for me to hear, that if you want to be a millionaire, you're a fucking idiot or whatever his words were. And I think that that's interesting. And here's the beautiful thing about working with people like Alistair, learning from people like Alistair. So I'm on a path at the moment to build my business to 7 figures because there's a bigger vision behind it. But then I hear Alistair saying something like, if you're trying to make $1 million a year, then you're a fucking idiot. And it's not about saying I honestly believe his point isn't don't make money or money is bad. I think his point is saying find what works for you and do what makes you happy. Do what drives your purpose and don't be pressured by the judgments of external sources or society's collective view of what we think is required to make us happy. I think when you get to a point where you know in your heart of hearts why you're doing the things you're doing them and what really motivates you, that's where you find that freedom from anxiety and stress and other types of mental pressures. So I'll just do a quick zip in because I know we're coming close to the end of the show and we may or may not get Alistair back online. All the more reason why you have to come and see him in Adelaide so you can actually meet him live. And he's going to do an hour session with us there to really give us some insights into how we apply the processes that he's learned himself. So I'll just check in with Theone if I should wrap up.
I'm here again.
Oh, hello. You're here again.
Amazing.
All right, let's do a wrap up then, Alistair. And it's just a good teaser, I think. I like the way you're playing hard to get.
I'm so sorry. It's ridiculous.
We're dangling the carrot of Alistair.
I know. I'll do it on stage. I'll just keep on walking off stage and walking on again.
People just have to come to the frickin' room and see you at the convention centre. Yeah, it's going to be fantastic. And I genuinely am excited that you've agreed to come to town and do this. I don't think you've come to Adelaide very often, have you? Have you ever been here?
I've been once when I was 20 years old.
Oh, wow. Oh, my God.
Yeah.
People of Adelaide, this is probably one of your very rare opportunities. This guy. So, Alistair, I'd love to wrap up with your top 5 tips for finding freedom. And I was just having a rave before about how you said if you want to become a millionaire or you want to make $1 million, maybe you're a dickhead. My big goal next year is to turn my business into a 7-figure business. So I don't take it personally.
But I didn't say that. I said if you need $1 million to live.
Yes. That's true. My business, I don't pay myself. But what the point I was making is, don't think that Alistair's saying money is bad or trying to create wealth is a bad thing. It's about finding what makes you happy rather than feeling that you need external sources to satisfy and validate your life. Have I rephrased that well enough?
Well, kind of. I just think, obviously society is changing, and I'm actually quite a conservative. I'm more on the conservative side than the progressive side. But there's a lot of useful things coming out of the progressive side. Yeah. And I don't think, with good conscience, like I said, sure, make $1 million a year if you want. Sure, make sure that you're financially free. But if you need to spend $1 million a year to be happy, then I think you've probably got a problem. I think it's a bit indulgent. I think it's a bit kind of gross. I have to be honest. People need help. That's just my worldview. And I'm pretty conservative. It's not that I've got any problems with people making money. Make as much as you want and do whatever the hell you want to do with it. But if you truly needed that to prop up your sense of self and your self-worth, then I think, maybe Houston, you've got a problem. But if you're making that kind of money and you're doing some kind of cool stuff with it and you're being kind of useful with it, then more the merrier to you.
Got it. Yep, I like it. So let us know then, what are your top 5 tips for people finding freedom, Alistair?
God, that's a bit on the spot, isn't it? The top 5 tips for finding freedom.
The notes, obviously, you didn't read your homework.
No, I did. Okay, so the first thing I would do, I'm a big fan of the gentleman who runs, it's Jonathan, who runs something called the Good Life Project. And on the Good Life Project, he has something called your Spark Type Assessment. And there's lots of assessments out there, strength tests and assessments. But this one's a particularly good one because it's pretty honest. It tells you how you can overuse your strength and underuse them. And I think that's a really good one. Because I think, I am a big believer in developing our strengths, but also sometimes we have to develop our weaknesses as well. But it definitely helps you really tune in to the things that make you feel most alive. Yes. So if you want to feel free, you've got to feel alive. That's what we're really talking about. And so I think getting a really clear assessment of really where you sit with your skills and your abilities and working from that would be my number 1. Yeah. The number 2 would be, I would kind of redefine success. And I would say that truly success isn't a monetary value or material things. Success is the feeling of being on track with your life. Yeah. So I go after feelings of success rather than material objects that you think validate your success. We all know they just come and go. And we all know that once you've got that car, it's fun. And then, after a little while, you've kind of got used to it and it's just another car. We know that happens. So at the end of the day, try and define or think about defining success as a feeling of being on track with your life. So when you're feeling on track with your health and your food, being on track with your family, with your business, how can I feel on track? And sometimes, that the most fun part is when you're moving towards those things, So that would say that would be probably number 2. Number 3 is I would become someone who genuinely has the capacity for self-honesty. You're not going to be free if you're still playing the game of kind of kidding yourself, of playing kind of like the Joneses and social comparisons and all that kind of stuff. You have to really be honest about what makes you feel like most alive, who makes you feel most alive, what makes you feel most alive? You know, like what foods make you feel most alive? Which people make you feel most alive? And by most alive, I'm sorry to say this, I don't mean like Tony Robbins running up and down the road, jumping up and down, singing Tina Turner alive. I mean that genuine, contented sense of, you know, vibrancy and being into life. You know what I mean? So I mean, my number 3, find things that make you genuinely feel most alive.
Love it.
The 4th is the one that we'll cover on the day, and that is really, you know, identify who you're being when you're being your, I mean, I hate the word, but your best self, yes, and who you're being when you're being your most kind of mediocre, non-best self. And that's normally an identity. You know, you're coming from a place of identity when you do that. And then once you've got that, it becomes pretty easy to have like a north, you know, for your compass as to which kind of behaviors or which kind of sensibilities ones are going to make you going to feel really good about yourself in life, and which ones are going to make you feel kind of a little bit shitty.
Yeah,
and I suppose the 5th thing really is, you know, you have to find a way to not beat yourself up in life. You know, we are in the process of evolution. You know, we are only 200,000 years old on a planet that is billions of years old. We are not long out the tree. We are a work in progress. And most of our problems are nothing more than A, the innocence of being a child, yes, and B, the collective kind of history of the universe to this point. So we take on these crazy responsibilities that we should be perfect and amazing and getting everything sorted. That's completely unrealistic. It's ridiculous. You know what I mean? We are, as we all know, a blip in the scheme of things, and we're in obviously a wonderful, brilliant, important blip. But part of that blip is, we haven't got it all sorted. You know what I mean? And we shouldn't think that we should have it all sorted. You know what I mean? We are truly, you know, part of a thing that is in progress. So we have to find ways to stop beating ourselves around the head for not being right, perfect, the best, good all the time. And the obvious fallibilities that, you know, I always talk about is, at the end of the day, we are mammals. We're mammals. Yeah, we might be evolved, we might have spiritual consciousness, whatever you want to say, but all mammals suffer from anxiety when you put too much fucking stress on them. A camel does, a dolphin does, a dog does, you know, a fucking mouse. Every mammal does, you know. Mammals, camels, dolphins, dogs, cats, they all go into depression when things happen to them, you know, when they get overwhelmed. And we are mammals as well. And I think when we start seeing ourselves as a part of this evolution rather than separate for it, we start finding our way home to a more kind of enriching and, dare I say, kind of organically compatible relationship with life.
Yeah, nice. That's a nice one. An organically compatible relationship with life.
Most people are trying to imprint their will on life rather than try to move and flow with life.
And that is where the problems begin. I think the beating of oneself up is such a big issue. I know as a coach that when I start working with people on their business, the first thing we need to address is the voice in the ear saying, you're fucked, you can't do it, you're a loser and all that stuff. And it's like, whoa. So I really am looking forward to having you on Wake Up Adelaide and sharing your wisdom around that, Alistair. You are such a freaking joy to be around. I really do. I love your spirit, and I think what's been really nice for me on my journey is being able to meet people like you who I've thought, okay, these are the masters, these are the guys on the pedestal, but then you go, actually, no, they're just as fucked up as everybody else. But the more open we are about it, the more we can say this is really more of a human or even a mammalian experience. So I really am grateful for you teaching me that, Alistair. Thank you.
No, my pleasure. Yeah, I mean, I think that's what and I know you're great at it as well, Jodie, and that's why, you know, I respect you so much. It's like we have to get rid, and I'm going to say, of these personal development idiots who put these perfectionistic ideals on stage that everyone just fails against. It's insane. You got to stop giving them money. You know what I mean? Like, it's a madness. You know, the amount of people that I have to it's culting. You have to deprogram people from these completely irrational, you know, ideas and concepts that are, as I said, they're very. Sorry.
They're facades. For
the facades. You know, the classic persona in Jungian analysis. You know, a false self is put forward, and you can only live so long with a false self before it comes crashing down. You've got to find a way, as we know, we use the word authenticity. You've got to find a way of, but you can't go to a seminar. You can go to a seminar. You can't go to and teach authenticity. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, it's a decision, it's a fucking decision. Am I going to start cutting the bullshit or not? Am I going to, so I really pray. I mean, and me, I've kind of been a little bit behind the scenes since I made it big in the UK, but there's definitely a part of me that's getting in a bit of an itch to try and get out there and, kind of do a bit of a mallet to the head to the personal development world and go, it's enough. It's enough.
Well, I'm hoping that Wake Up Adelaide is that initial mallet to the head. And that's really everything that you've talked about, Alistair, is exactly what's driving this movement. And that's why you're the perfect guy to bring to town for it, because I think we need the mallet to the head in the industry. And it's an exciting thing to have you as part of. So thanks so much for being here. We're going to wrap it up now because I know it's Aaron in the background. Time to wrap up. So thanks everyone for watching, and remember, come and meet this guy at Wake Up Adelaide, November 21st and 22nd. Let us know if you want to come and we'll give you a code to get a free ticket. Thanks so much, Alistair.
Thanks so much for your time, Jodie, and thanks for the invite to Wake Up Adelaide. And everyone who's listening, I will look forward to meeting you in person.
See you there. See you in a couple of weeks. Bye.
Take care. See you. Bye-bye.
Thanks.